Welcome back to the Upside Down Influencer podcast, where we talk about the things that we see on social media and how we as Christ followers can do it differently. I'm your host, Jessica Johnson, and today's episode is one I know that so many of you are going to love because we're talking about something that is both challenging and exciting. Sharing your faith boldly on social media. And to help us navigate this conversation, I have an incredible guest joining me today, Cassidy Brown. Cassidy is known for using her platform to share the gospel in a real, relatable, and engaging way. And what's most impressive to me is that she's only 23 years old. If you've ever felt called to be more open about your faith online, but weren't sure how to do it, or were worried about facing criticism, this episode is for you. Here's my conversation with Cassidy Brown. Hello, friends.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast.
I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so glad to have you.
Yep.
And turns out you live right down the road.
10 minutes. Yeah. I said I could walk here, but realistically, I can't.
Yeah, no, it would actually take a lot longer than you think.
It wouldn't take 10 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm trying to think of, how I know you. I think we had met technically through church.
Yeah, through Brooke, actually, my friend.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've been going to 1122 for a while.
Yeah.
And then I had known her through SEU, so my college, and we had met through there, and she was like, I have somebody for you to meet. She leads Bible study, and I was like, Bible study? I love Bible study. So ended up coming over here and meeting you for the first time, and we really clicked, and you did social media and stuff, so we got to talk about that. So and that was years ago.
Yeah,
I'm pulling in, I'm like, is this the right house?
Yeah, no, I can't believe it's already been a few years.
Yeah, 2 or 3. It's been crazy.
Well, I'm so excited that you're here, and I've just been following your journey on social media, and it's really been quite the journey, and even more recently, I feel like things just have taken just a turn. Your stuff is just blowing up, and I'm just so excited for you, and it's been a privilege to follow you. Yeah. So if you could go ahead and introduce yourself and a little bit about your testimony and what you're doing.
Yeah. So my name is Cassidy. I am the Cassidy on most socials. I don't know why I chose that years ago. I'd probably go back and change it to something else now, but it is what it is.
Oh, that's cute.
I think I copied Sadie Robertson back in the day. She was like the real Sadie Rob or whatever, and I was like, oh, the real Cassidy. I don't know why I did that. But
no, it's cute. I like it.
So I do social media, and part of my testimony growing up was I was, exposed to pornography when I was 9. And as a girl growing up, it's like I'm the only one. You never hear of other women talking about it. And so there was a lot of shame. There was a lot of guilt there. And I never thought in a million years that I'd be talking to millions of people on social media about it. Nevertheless, my mom or dad. And so years went by, didn't know that freedom was possible. Didn't really know it was an issue, to be quite real, until I was 19. And the Lord redeemed me, freed me in my bedroom randomly. I was watching a Mike Todd video. He was talking about the progression of pornography, how it starts so innocent, we're exposed to it, and it turns into perversion slowly but surely. And I was like, Lord, I can't do this anymore. This has now been 10 years up until this point of where I had not stopped watching. It became a comfort blanket for me, and I had relied on it in areas of my life where I didn't need to. And even though I was going to church, I was heavily involved in the youth group. Nobody knew. And I got set free that night. I had moved back from, some place that I had spent 7 years living. And so I knew nobody. It was a brand new place. And for me to give up something like that and be like, okay, I'm giving it up. And then to look around and be like, I don't have anything around me. Yeah. So I started posting consistently on social media back then as a joke. Like it was something super funny. And I was like, it's going to get me through the move.
And this was TikTok.
This was TikTok.
Okay.
And back then, Musical.ly had come out. But nothing really happened on Musical.ly. It was like, some petty videos, nothing really major. Yeah. And I actually, one of my first videos that ever went viral was a video about my feet. I actually have a very special, it's not what you think. It's not what you think. I say that and people are like, oh, so you're one of those people.
Yeah, okay.
I actually have a condition. It's called syndactyly something. And it's where the first 3 toes on each of my feet are webbed. So they have extra skin. I can't wear flip-flops. I can't do anything like that. I have to wear sandals with the strap over instead of the toe thong. My dad has it, and then my grandpa had it.
I know somebody that has it.
Mm-hmm. So it's very rare, and I made a video about it. It blew up, and I got called all these types of names, and I was like, yeah, I've heard it all before. It's okay.
Did you actually show your feet?
Oh yeah. I show myself walking up, and I was like, this is my these are my feet. They're
out of
super
curiosity,
rare.
how were you I feel like to some other people that might be something they were like be like embarrassed to share.
Oh yeah. Oh
right?
yeah.
Like,
Well, I had
what
been
led
bullied.
you to do that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I was just bored one day. I have no idea. And well, I had moved. I had nothing better to do. I didn't have any friends. I didn't have whatever. And I had been bullied in high school a little bit for it whenever I was younger. And at this point in my life, I was like, okay, and what? Like, why do I care about the bullies? Why do I care what people have to think? And that really, like, the exposure I gave myself from that video really numbed out anything. Like, I just got so much hate in like the comments and like people like saying all these really rude things. After that, I was like, okay, and like I can take anything after that.
Yeah.
And now I get comments from people like, oh my gosh, I was here from like your feet video years ago.
What?
And I just like found your Christian content and I love it. So like something that used to be such a big insecurity, we went to doctors, we went to hospitals, I had surgeries to try to fix it.
Really?
And oh yeah, but they could never cut it. Because if they did, like the toe itself I wasn't born with bone in that toe. So it would have like went off to the side. So like God knew what he was doing when he gave me it. Like he was literally saving me from so much more worse things that could have happened.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's kind of how I got started. I started posting about my faith, and then I went to ministry school and I had anxiety, and so I started posting about all that. And for some reason, people picked up on it. I don't know why. It was just like random Christian content. The TikTokers of 2020 is what they called themselves. But we went to conferences. We all, gathered in groups. And I met a lot of cool people through Christian TikTok back then. And
so was there a specific moment, not to cut you off, I'm sorry. Still learning how to do this. When your Christian content started to take off? Because obviously you might have gotten some random followers from a foot video.
That's just gonna be the tagline.
And so then, but then what was the moment that you realized, oh, maybe there's something to this faith-based content?
Yeah, it was the turning point of kind of posting for fun, like the petty videos, the trends, all that stuff. And then the day I sat in my car, I had posted Christian content before, like, oh, reading my Bible or Bible study. It was all surface level. It was nothing very deep. I still gotten like engagement and stuff from it, but I sat in my car one day. I don't know what compelled me to do this. I have no idea. Sat in my car, put my phone up on the other side of the car and started filming and talked about my pornography addiction from years ago. And I posted it, went inside, got ready for bed, didn't open the app, didn't think to open the app, didn't really care to, and woke up in the morning and I was like, what have I done? Blew up overnight. And then I'm like, wait a minute, this now means that my parents will have to see it. This now means my friends know. Like, this was a whole deeper meaning than just me talking about it on social media. Like, everybody knew.
Yeah.
So that was the point where I was like, well, now I have to come clean and talk about my past.
Oh, so at the time when you posted that,
I was already free from it.
You were free from it, but nobody knew that was something that you struggled with.
Yeah,
and so you had never shared it with
who wants to come forward and be like, oh, I'm the only woman I've ever heard of struggling with this. Nobody wants to do that. But nowadays you hear about like Janine Amapola, I think her last name is. She talks about how she struggled with pornography and other creators like that I've heard. Yeah. And it's so freeing as somebody who is a woman who used to struggle to see that. And that's what I want to be for, other girls that are growing up, to know that like they have a safe space to go. But also it's very freeing when you look for, Jesus in those things, when you're like, I need freedom from this. It's not just me. I'm not just an issue. Like it's a chemical makeup. It's an addiction. It's something you need help from, and it's normal for women to struggle. But that was really kind of the turning point of like, okay, wait, now everybody knows about this. Now I can speak about this. So I started speaking about it. Everybody really loved that content. And then it just kind of flowed from there. So, yeah. Wow.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So you have, what now, 330,000, something like that? 1,000 followers. So that's a lot of people and a lot of
Roman stadium,
eyes. Eyes and ears on you. And you're pretty bold about your faith. You speak with conviction. And what is being bold on TikTok or on, whatever app you're posting on look like for you?
I think over the years it's translated into different things. I think when I first started posting, it was like, oh, like I'm posting to, my friends in high school, or I'm posting to my small little community, and I'm going to share about what God's been teaching me. That was it. Right? Like at the beginning it was, I did my devotional today, I went to church today, and I wanted to share what God put on my heart. And then all of a sudden, like slowly but surely, it was like, wait, I'm doing my devotional every day and I really feel compelled to share. And so that's what it came out of and originated from, was like, I just really want to share my testimony. I just really want to share about what Jesus put on my heart. And I've always been one to be like, never hold anything in. So like, yes, I'll go private before I go public, but I'm going to share some things that I learned in my private, quiet time with people, because I felt compelled to.
Yeah.
So after a while, that became this like weird thing for me, that like, oh my gosh, I can create content and make it about my faith. And then that's how I kind of, I don't know, created that boldness inside of me to be like, I love Jesus. He's my Lord and Savior. He's changed my life. I was set free from an addiction because of him.
Yeah.
And so why wouldn't I want to share that?
Absolutely.
But also, you're going to get opposition. You're going to get hate. You're going to get all this stuff. But like, it's all worth that because Jesus had it too, you know?
Yeah. And what's so great about being in that position is like, you actually don't need to know that much Bible knowledge. Like at the end of the day, if you just share your story, you're telling the truth.
Yeah.
But the hard part is, I think people might be looking to you for more and being like, tell me more about the Bible. And yet, as a new Christian, you're like, well, I'm not quite there yet, but I can tell you my story again, you know, and like, and that can be your story too.
Even in the DMs now, I get girls that are like, I talk about breakups, I talk about, you know, a lot these days, and I get girls that are like, Cassidy, I need your advice. Should I break up with them? Should I not? And they write a whole novel about their relationship. And it's like, I can't answer that. I'm not Jesus. Because also I wouldn't want you to resent me if I told you something or I gave you advice on something. Same thing with like, well, what do you think about this in the Bible? I love answering those types of questions, but at the end of the day, it's my opinion, right? Like I'm not Jesus. I'm not God. I can't tell you what to feel. It's just one more opinion to add to the pot.
Well, I would imagine with the amount of followers that you have and just showing up on people's For You page that you might get a mixture of, you probably have a mixture of like the Christians that see your content and then people who also don't share your beliefs. Yeah. How do you balance the two? Because maybe somebody just comments on your stuff, well, I don't believe that, or blah, 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 blah. Or maybe they don't believe it, but they're not necessarily being rude.
Yeah.
Well, how do you handle like being compassionate towards those people without coming off as, you know, a Bible thumper?
That's hard because sometimes I'll go to type out and I'm like, and then the Holy Spirit will convict me and I'm like, okay, backspace. Like I can't type that because I'm petty, right? Like I want to respond.
I get it. Yeah, that like a moment of pride is like.
I'm like, let me tell you, and I'm like, I gotta take a step back. I can't do that.
Yeah.
So it is hard, and we call that like on the Christian TikTok side, we call it like the wrong side of TikTok. Like if you're talking to somebody that's a Christian creator and they're like, oh, my video just went on the wrong side, you're like, oh, I'm sorry about that, because you know it's like it's about to get, you know, some fiery comments.
But in a way, but that's kind of the point, though, right? To reach people who might not share your beliefs. That's how you get them to be exposed to the gospel.
Absolutely. I'd rather it reach the wrong side than necessarily all the people who feel the same about you, right?
Yeah.
In the same way. But at the same time, you have to know how to handle that conflict. And if you've, like me with the feet video, let's just say, I was not prepared for the comments. I was like, wow, you're calling me all these names. That's great. That's one type of thing. That, you know, you're calling me, you're making fun of me. But then to go to a Christian video and talk about your beliefs and what you believe and your morals and how you were raised, and somebody to attack that, it's different. It's much different. Then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, like that's not something I can change, but this is what I believe. And when people challenge what you believe, you get even more mad. And then you want to respond out of anger and hate and whatever, but you've got to like dial it back and be like, you know, what would Jesus do? But honestly, how can I be the best reflection? Because this might be the only chance they see Jesus, right? Like I could be the only ounce of Jesus that they see their entire life. How am I going to reflect that? Sometimes I'll type it out and send it to a friend of mine. I'm like, hey, does it sound bad or does it sound friendly? Like, you know, and it is hard because some people just want to argue. Like that's just what they want to do.
Yeah, like they literally just, they're setting out to be a troll no matter how kind or how much grace that you put on whatever you're saying back.
You can respond with 5 different Bible verses and be like, this is what I found. You do all the research. And they're like, do you really think I'm going to go read that? And you're like, well, okay. At least it's in the comments for somebody else to read. In the comments, like, you have to think, like, it's not just that person reading that one comment you're about to post. You have an entire, however many views you get, all those people are going to be looking at those comments.
Oh, they're going to see it.
Oh, yeah.
And then other people can, like, hit like on their your comment and whatever. I want to see who likes those comments. So sometimes I just hold down the button to see if I can see who likes it, because I'm just curious like that. You can't. Because I want to know, like, who's supporting, you know, who's supporting those hate comments sometimes. But, I delete, actually, when it comes to, like, hate comments and stuff, I delete some of those comments sometimes. And I know that's, like, so not Christian. Sometimes you have to protect your heart.
And your audience too, because if somebody's out there struggling with their faith and they read a comment like that and be like, oh, okay, so I can feel that way. Or if somebody's like, oh, that's a good way of thinking about it. I would never want somebody to fall short because of a comment on my video. And so I just have to use discernment of like, is it worth deleting or is it worth responding?
Yeah.
And that's hard, right? Because you want to respond and you want to be like, hey, with biblical truth, watching pornography is bad. But then at the same time, when they respond with something like, oh, I watch it all the time and it benefits my mental health, I'm like, where are you getting that information from? So if somebody believes that and I don't respond to it, somebody, a younger Cassidy is going to come along and be like, oh, does it? Okay, well, like, that's not bad then. It's not bad. And I wouldn't want somebody to fall short just because of that comment that I could have deleted,
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you said it really well, that it's just about using discernment, because there's always going to be negative comments, especially if you're sharing about your faith. You're going to get pushback.
Yeah.
No, that's really, really good advice. Do you ever feel like, in light of all that you're holding back? Like, has there ever been a time that you maybe do a video that's a little more surface level instead of with the full conviction that you want to talk about it as, because you are afraid of what other people might think?
Oh, yeah. I just actually went through, I say public, I mean, it was kind of semi-public because a lot of people knew us, and I posted our relationship on social media. And as soon as the breakup happened and I was going through my healing process, I wanted to post about it. I wanted to say, like, this is how I'm feeling. I'm feeling hurt. I'm feeling all these things. And it's okay to feel like this. But at the same time, I was so afraid of people taking it out of context. I was afraid of people like screenshotting it, sending it to other people. I was afraid of hurting the other person. I was afraid of all these things. And I had to take a step back and be like, I can't post right now. And
That's wisdom.
I'm limiting myself. Yeah. It was a lot of discernment or in conviction, because I knew that I wasn't healed enough to talk about it. Because if I did, I knew that I'd slip and say something I didn't mean. And then months later, I'd be like, I shouldn't have said that. I didn't feel that way. That was just me healing.
Yeah.
Because, like when you're in the middle of the healing journey, you feel a lot of things. Like you go through anger, you go through grief, you go through resentment, you go through all these things. So if I spoke out in that immature season, I would have said things I regretted,
No, that's really good.
So.
You actually took that in a different way that I meant it, but I like the direction that you took it. Do you ever feel like you'll hold yourself back, though, from talking about your faith to a certain degree in fear that, in the desire to want to be liked?
Yeah. I think when trends come around, every time I'm always and that's a different conversation too, but when trends come around, I kind of feel convicted sometimes of, do I participate, do I not? Because then it's like, do I participate in a trend where it says things I don't agree with, and now I have to be held accountable, right? And the whole platform itself, that's an accountability thing, right? And I think that the Lord gave me that platform. I think He gave me it for a few reasons, but I think one of them is to hold me in check. Because if I did not have this following and I was just posting, I would have posted a lot of like junk, like I would have fallen for every trend. I would have done all these things. But now that I have all these eyes on me, I'm like, okay, this is really God holding me accountable to what I post. Because I slip up and I post one thing with one bad word in it, even if it's music overlay, I'm not even, singing along to it, whatever. I get a comment, I get a DM. And I'm like, well, that's
people
true.
actually come at you for that stuff. That's really interesting. We'll keep going, but I wanted to make a quick note that I don't think I mentioned, that she is only 23 years old. And as you can see, she just has so much wisdom and discernment that I wish maybe I had more than I think. But I just am so impressed at your age.
Thank you.
How much that you think through these things, and that you have a large platform of people that are looking to you. And I didn't mean to cut you off. I just felt like it's important to add to the conversation, because I think it speaks just a lot of volumes.
Yeah, a lot of people think, we were just talking about this earlier, a lot of people think I'm younger than I am, or that I'm older, and I'm always like, I'm very mature for my age. People have told me that my entire life. I'm an older soul. Like, I go to bed at 8:30. I love, all the older shows, like the Dick Van Dyke Show, all that kind of stuff. I love black and white TV. And I just think I was born in the wrong generation, honestly. But then, for some reason,
you're born in the right one.
Yeah,
you were born in the right one.
Yeah.
I want to go back to what we were saying, because you were talking about how people will come at you for certain sounds and stuff. I actually find that topic very interesting, because I was going to ask you, like, have you ever felt pressure to compromise your beliefs to stay relevant or gain followers? And just in my journey with social media, I don't nearly have as many followers as you have, but I'm really good at coming up with like short, funny videos that randomly go viral.
Yeah.
Like I just, for whatever reason, God's gifted me with humor when it comes to making short video content. But it's so hard because there'll be a trend that I'll be like, oh, like I have an idea for this, but the sound will have something in it that I'm like, oh,
sometimes you won't even realize it does. They just sneak it in there, and you're like, why would you have to add that in and ruin it?
Yeah. And that's also just been a journey of, it might be over the top sometimes, but I personally choose not to use audio with swear words, not because I'm trying to be overly religious, but for the same reason you are. It's like I know I have other people potentially looking at my stuff that's like that in a way will hold me accountable. Have there ever been times where you have gone ahead and been like, I'm just going to do it anyways, but then like maybe chose to delete it?
Oh yeah. I don't know if chose to. I think it's still down there somewhere. But there's a few trends where like there's one a few years ago, and it was the one where like it was some Russian song, and it was like a handshake thing where it was like this, whatever. You know what I'm talking about?
I do. Yeah.
I did it. Didn't think anything of it. It was like anti-porn. I was talking about like the harmful benefits or whatever. I got roasted in the comments.
Wait a second. That one Russian song?
Probably saw
the one with Katie. Oh no, I thought that was the one that went viral for you with Katie Bulmer.
Oh,
but no,
I think maybe we did that for promo.
Yeah,
maybe
you had one that went viral. Sorry.
Yes, it's in that season of life, and I got roasted, and I was like, "What is going on?" And they were like, do you not understand what this means? Like, and I was like, first, I can't understand what they're saying.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, also, there's no lyrics in the clip that I use. And they're like, just the hand movements. And I'm like, what is, okay. So definitely I've learned, do your research. Even the other day, I saw one and I was like, oh, that's so good. Like, to make it a man of God, like, this type of thing. Sent it to my friend. She's like, do you know what that means? And I'm like, no, do I need to know? She's like, yeah, that's kind of inappropriate. And I was like, well, good to know. And then I was like, well, dang, that's kind of disappointing. But you do, it does hold you to a different standard of like, I need to check things out before
and see where the source is.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this sucks, but like so many songs, if you really, and not just songs, like just different random clips and sounds, like so many of them, if you really dive in, you're like, I don't like where that started, but it's almost so far removed at some point that it's not at all what it is. And so again, it's all about using discernment and like sometimes there's not a clear-cut answer and all you can do is be like, Lord. And usually if I'm on the fence, the answer is no.
There's a reason. Yeah. Even with songs that like have a bad connotation or have cuss words or whatever, I'll take the lyrics off and it'll just be instrumental. I'll still get people being like, do you know what song that is? And I'm like, yeah, I do. So I took the lyrics off of it. But if it bothers somebody else that much, like there has to be a reason, right? So then I'm like, I'll just use Christian music. And then I'm like, okay, well, like there's a decent amount of Christian music out there. And for like workout videos and stuff like that, I'm like picking Lecrae, I'm picking KB, I'm picking, hype music. And those are pretty much similar to nowadays, regular rap music. But it's like things I don't want to hear. Like when I'm in the gym, I don't want to listen to inappropriate connotations. Like that doesn't make me feel good about myself. Like who wants to listen to women being objectified while they're in the gym? Like that doesn't really make me feel great. So it's also like how you portray that on social media too, because your Apple Music, your Spotify's public. So I posted mine the other day, didn't think anything of it, and they're like, wow, you have all these like nasty songs on your gym playlist. And I was like, well, that's why I didn't share my gym playlist with you.
Your Apple Music's public? I have some really old playlists that I'm like, people can just...
You have profiles, allegedly. I didn't know this, news to me, but yeah, you have a profile.
Well, this is news to me. Not that I sit around listening to anything inappropriate. I don't.
Like, well, let me go through my explicit.
I have really old playlists, and I just like, same way with it's like my phone contacts. I have people from high school, I'm like, why?
Yeah, I need to go through and remove.
Why are these there? No, it's really, really interesting.
Catch her after going through her playlist.
Yeah, no, I really actually need to do that now that I know. What advice would you give to somebody who's like, I have a story and I want to start sharing, but I'm afraid?
Yeah. I think it's funny because I was talking to my mom about this the other day, and she's like, ever since you were little, you've always wanted a YouTube channel, you've always wanted social media accounts. And whenever she grew up Southern Baptist, so they didn't like technology, they didn't like social media, and like my entire life, she was like, social media is bad for that whole spiel, right?
Yeah.
Until I got to high school, and I was like, I'm getting social media one way or another, either behind your back or like in front of your face, one or the other, I'm getting it.
Oops.
I was a trouble child for sure, and she always told me, she's like, you know what you first like said to me years ago? It was that you would sit at a table with sinners just as Jesus would, right? So that's what we're called to do. Like on social media, it is not like the best place ever, right? Like you can go down some deep, dark rabbit holes on social media. You can get tempted on social media. You can get fed lies on social media. You can do the comparison trap game on social media. It can be really, really bad. Like your mental health, like it can cause really deep-rooted issues. But at the same time, it's a way to spread the gospel. It's modern evangelism now that you can use social media to reach people. I mean, I had a girl the other day DM me from India. She's like, "You've reached India. Like, this is so cool, whatever." And I was like, "India?" Like, I mean, my mind is right
see
here.
that in your analytics?
You can,
like,
yeah.
Who?
I think Africa is one of the biggest for me too, and then Australia is another one of my biggest ones. I'm like, well, maybe I should take a trip over there. You know? Yeah,
a little beat up.
Yeah. So I don't. And my biggest advice is like, pretend like you're sitting down at a table of sinners. What would you go to say? You would go to encourage them. You go to pour into them. You go and be like, Jesus.
And we're all sinners.
We're all sinners. Yeah. As unsaved. I should. Yeah, this is my family. It's fine. Unsaved people, right? Like we should go with non-Christians and be like, this is what following Jesus looks like. And be real and be vulnerable. That's what I did. I mean, just starting from sharing my testimony about pornography. Who wants to do that? You know, it's not a pretty testimony. It's not something that I'm like, I have the most beautiful testimony ever, and it's sunshine and rainbows and really pretty pink bow on top. No, it's like I've seen stuff I didn't want to see, and it's stuff that hurts God and God's heart, and he wants to protect us from that, and instead I'm enjoying it, you know? And like that's hard for me to reckon and wrap my mind around, but at the end of the day I know that God saved me from that so I can go and tell others. And I think that's where it comes from, is like it comes from a place of being so passionate about what God did in your life that you want to share. You don't have anything else to do but share, like at that point, like he moved in your life so much and he saved you from so much that you just want to share the good news. You just want to share what he did in your life.
That's so good. Yeah, I don't know if you would agree with this, but I find with my walk with the Lord and when I post that if my heart is in the wrong place and I feel like I'm posting to get views and to build my name and to build my platform, I swear the video tanks. Like, I don't understand. And so it just made me think about what you were saying. Like, also God has to be the one to do it. Like, if you want to share, you should, but like God has to build the house. Oh, yeah. And then don't be trying to seek the platform more than you're trying to seek the Savior.
Yep, absolutely. I went to go record a video the other night and I was forcing it. Like, and don't get me wrong, there were, years, we'll probably talk about this later, but there was years where I didn't post as much as I needed to or that I wanted to because I was so far from God. Like over the past, 2-3 years, I lost myself. I lost my purpose of social media. I got so wrapped up in worldly things. Like I wasn't posting. I went literally ghost mode, and people now are like, oh my gosh, I remember you from 2020. Like, what happened? Like, where did you go? And it's like, I got wrapped up in the world. Like, I really did. And when I was in that, I stopped posting because I was like, I cannot fake this. Like, I am not about to pour it from an empty cup.
And you're not going to sit there and act like, oh, I still have like this God following or this godly persona when I know that I'm not following the Lord.
And use the platform that God gave you to spread his name, to spread yours. Like, you think I'm about to do that? Absolutely not. So I went like ghost.
Well, that takes a lot of humility, considering you're saying that you felt far from God. You still have the wisdom to say that doesn't feel right.
I think it was last year, maybe February, March, around this time, I remember posting on my Instagram story, and this is so funny because afterwards I felt so convicted, and I posted and I was like, I'm so sorry, like if you feel uncomfortable by this, like you can go ahead and follow me, but I just wanted to share what I read in my devotional today. And after I posted that, I was like, these people know me from my faith videos, and all these past few years I haven't posted anything, and for me to apologize on my story about reading my devotional for the first time in forever, like who have I become? And then it really made me do a heart check of like, where am I coming from this, so yeah.
Oh, that's great. I feel like we've already kind of covered this, but How do you stay authentic to your faith while navigating all these things, the trends, the algorithms, and maybe even pressures from the platform itself? Because there might be this part of you is like, oh, I better post today, otherwise I'm going to get punished by the algorithm. Do you find that you feel like you have to post in order to keep up with something, or do you just trust that, you know what, God, like, I haven't posted in a few days, but if you're going to use it, you're going to use it?
I used to have that mentality, and that was really freeing, just to think like, you know what, God's got it, I don't need to do anything. But I realized that I hit more people at a certain time of day. And so...
What time of day is that?
So I post once at 12 around noon, because then people are off at lunch and they're on their phone scrolling. And then I post at night around 7 to 8.
Okay. Every day, twice a day?
Every day, twice a day. Now, there'll be days that I skip, and I don't feel bad about it. I'm like, oh, I just didn't. Because, again, I'm not going to
What kind of content, typically? Because I do follow you, but I've seen, like, your sit-down videos. But it's... Do you always have something to say? So how do you know? Do you kind of plan that out in advance? Like,
I have a list. I have a list of things that, like, God's like, oh, this would be really cool for you to talk about. Or I hear something, and I'm like, ooh, that's going to be good later. Like, our pastor last week has been talking about prayer. And I took that, I made notes from it, and I've been praying on it and, like, stewing on it all week. And so I finally get to the place where I'm like, okay, God's ready for me to share. Because I'm not going to share something prematurely just for views or clout.
Right.
Because,
like, that's good.
That I'm not going to just do that because, oh, I want the attention.
Again, that takes a lot of wisdom.
At the beginning,
because
for sure.
you probably want to. Like, it's in you that's like, I want to talk about
instant gratification. Yeah, you want the likes, you want all that stuff.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, if I'm not representing God in the way that He wants me to, then what's the purpose?
Yeah.
So yeah, it takes a while to, like, come up with ideas, and I have a list, but also all of that stuff comes from spending time with Jesus, right?
Yeah.
So, like, for me to start a video and be like, well, let me, hold on, let's think about something to talk about. That should authentically be coming from spending time in the Word and getting to know our Father, and it should flow out of that. Because if we start pouring from empty cups, we're going to be reaching to somebody else's cup to pour from, and that's false. That's imitating their faith.
Yeah.
So why are we imitating somebody else's faith to grow our platform when it's not our true faith?
So true. You're like borrowing from their faith.
Yes.
And you can only do that for so long.
And copying content only lasts you maybe a month until people start catching on, and they're like, wait a minute. And I know people who do that. I'll post something, and God bless them, they see it and they're like, this would be great for our ministry. And they copy it, and then they'll tag me in the comments. They'll be like, oh, inspo from Cassidy. I think that's great. If you do that, wonderful. But you can only do that for so long to where it's like, wait a minute, like, you're just and that's what trends are, right? Like, trends are people just copying other people's ideas.
Very true.
But when it comes down to Christian content, where this is what I learned in my Bible study today, and you talk about it, and then the next day they're like, this is what I learned today, and it's word for word the exact same, that's when I'm like, that's kind of strange. So you just kind of have to have conviction with that and discernment about that. But yeah, I will never, if I'm not spending time in the Word, I won't post that day. If I didn't spend time with God that day, I will not post, because that's not me coming out in an authentic way. That's me just kind of reproducing or recycling content.
And just operating from a pressure
yes.
to prove. And when you
to
operate out of that way, you're going to feel more drained.
Yes, yeah.
At the end
well,
of the
I sit there, and then I stumble over my words, and I get to the middle of the video, and I'm like, literally,
what am I even saying?
Yeah, I don't even know where am I going with this? I don't even know. And I turn it off, and I go to bed. Like, I'm done. I'm not going to pressure and put God in some, like, God, I need you to speak to me right now, when I wasn't speaking to you all day. Like, I can't do that.
I know, that's actually something that I've struggled with content-wise lately, is, again, like, I have a very specific gifting where I can just, like, make funny videos. But when I feel like, oh, better be funny, better come up with something funny,
it's pressure.
Yeah, and I just, like, and then I just, like, get in this creative rut, and I'm like, I don't want to be slave to that. I'm like, God, if you put something, an idea, I will use that, and then I'm going to trust that somehow. I think things are changing a little bit, too, with this ministry, and we can talk about that another time. But, I know that takes a lot of wisdom to operate like that.
Yeah.
So TikTok in particular, it's known for a sense of community. And there's, like, this authenticity that you can have on there that's different from Instagram. I feel like maybe if somebody was already posting on Instagram consistently, they might have been able to nurture that same thing. But how have you nurtured a community on your platform? Because if there's anybody here that's listening that wants to start using their social media in a way, like you have, you really do have to take care of the following that you have. And it's kind of like, I've used this analogy for something else, but they say that people that win the lottery end up more broke than they were like when they started. And it's because their old spending habits came with them. Like they didn't have that ability to like nurture the new amount of money that they have. And so it's like, say somebody does have a viral video and it takes off, and now it's like, oh no, I have a bunch of followers and I suddenly have to nurture this community.
Yeah.
What's your advice? How do you nurture a community, especially if you have a random video that kind of blows up overnight?
Yeah. I think for me, it started with just being vulnerable and creating a safe space. And I've said that about my podcast. I've said that about my Instagram, my TikTok. And Instagram is a scary place. Let me just say, when the TikTok ban thing happened and TikTok shut down, I was on Instagram and I was like, I hate it here. Like, it's so scary because it's so stuffy. It's so like, we're going to judge other people based on their likes and based on their followers. And TikTok is more of a place of like, oh my gosh, I really like your content, I'm going to follow. So it does create that community feel. But from day one, I've always been like, I'm going to be vulnerable with you because I want you to be vulnerable with me. So in the comments, in the DMs, when you know, my followers tell me like, oh, I'm struggling with this, can you pray for me? Absolutely, I'll be praying for you. They already know that. But I think it creates a deeper sense of community when I respond to the comments. And I think that's where it becomes like, because I'll see bigger creators. And for example, they'll go viral and they'll post something. And in the comments, they're, you know, a girl being like, oh my gosh, where did you get that from? Or, oh my gosh, I love this video. Or, you know, you're so cute. Nothing. Not even a like, not even a mention, not even an acknowledgement. And on my videos, I literally, this is going to sound so bad of me, but I try to like and view every comment. And that's a lot of comments. And I'll wake up in the morning and I scroll and like. I
mean, this girl has so
average,
many
it's 500
views.
to 600 comments.
Oh.
But somehow I go through most of them. Because again, I want to make sure that I'm weeding out any content that's, you know, I don't think that'd be a good comment to stay there for a while. Because I don't want to just start. And there are people who love to start arguments in the comments. And I'm like, this is not the place for that. But the majority of people are like, this is such a safe space. Like, I feel like you're my big sister. And that's what I wanted to do. I want to invite you into a place to not only learn about Jesus, but also for me to be vulnerable and be like, I'm in the same season you are. Guys are, you know, not the greatest these days. And we have to navigate that as Christian women. And like just allowing them a space to feel like they're safe and to feel like, hey, I'm not the only woman struggling with this. But also responding to comments. Like I go through and I respond probably to half or more than the comments because I want them to feel like they're acknowledged. If they're commenting and they're like, Cassidy, like, how do I deal with secular music? I'll respond to it via video. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know you would respond. Like,
oh, it makes them feel that much more special.
Yes, and it singles them out.
It's a personal touch.
Yes, it's a relationship. And like, that's what at the end of the day, I could sit here and I can make videos and be like, oh, I'm Cassidy and, you know, welcome to my channel, and then not respond to anybody. And that would make me feel so empty on the inside. Because ministry is one-on-one. It's intimate relationships.
That's so good.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's easy. It's an easy place that people can feel removed quickly. But by adding that little personal touch, that extra like, whatever, it definitely makes people feel that much more endeared to you.
Yeah. And I'll go through, this is like a little side tip, I'll go through for like content ideas too. If I'm like, oh, I don't really have anything to talk about this week, I'll scroll through and like somebody will be like, I'm really struggling with this. Or, Cassidy, what do you think about this? I'm like, oh, okay, I'll write it down. And then next week I'll do it. And they're like, how did you know that was on my mind? I'm like, I don't know, that's crazy. Because I read and I go through and I make sure like, hey, I see a generation of girls that are struggling with waiting until marriage. I want to talk about that. I want to dive into that. So I make a series on it. And great. All these girls are like, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one waiting until marriage. I didn't know it was a popular thing. And it's not a popular thing. It's not heard of, you know, like there's a lot of girls who don't wait for marriage, or a lot of guys who want one thing and one thing only. And how do we navigate that in our 20s as single Christian women? It's hard. And so giving them a space to be like, oh wait, I can, and it's okay, and you're doing it, so I can do it. And like that's like the best feeling of like, knowing that I'm giving them a safe space to where they can do what they think is unpopular and not wanted, but also I'm being the person I needed when I was younger.
What are your thoughts on like the Christian aesthetic? I feel like unfortunately being a Christian in a way has become an aesthetic. And I don't even know how to describe that other than you kind of know it when you see it.
Well, it's underneath the hashtag Christian Girl. If you ever want to look it up, there are a lot of girls who wake up in the morning, they have the perfect morning routine, they sit down with their Bible, their coffee, they make their coffee before they read, their Bible's all perfect, it's pink highlighted. I mean, it's perfection. And then you have people like me that are like barely getting up in the morning, that are, don't have a lick of makeup on, that are going and like maybe even miss their devotional for the morning or don't even read. And that's just real and authentic. But it's hard to pigeonhole into that aesthetic because then you have to keep it up all the time.
Yeah, it's really interesting when I see, and this is no hate to people who do this kind of content. I've tried to do this kind of content and stuff, but like when people do the get up with me and they make their breakfast and everything just looks so clean, whatever, and then they do like their quiet time on camera, and I'm like, did you actually do it, or did you open
Just
it
flip pages.
and flip a few pages? And I won't even lie, like in the past I have
me too,
done that, and it's just like what? And then maybe I spent, like, for me now, like my quiet time's so different because even though I had so much more time before being a mom, it's so much different now. And now I'm like, wherever I can squeeze it in, and the kitchen table will be a mess, and I'm doing this, and it's like I don't have time even to think about recording it for social media. And I'm pretty sure the Bible says something about not doing that. Yeah. But I just was wondering about your thoughts, because you are so heavily in that world, and it's so easy for people to look at influencers that are in the Christian space and like, oh, this person obviously has it together. They do their quiet time every day and blah, blah, blah. Like, what would your advice be to people who see these like perfect morning routines as far as like reading their Bible on their everyday? What would your advice be to the young woman or the young man who's like watching that's like, oh, my life doesn't look like that?
Yeah. I mean, mine doesn't either. And like I have, a platform, and mine doesn't look half like that even. And what I challenge you with is not to compare. Because the second that we start comparing is the second that we start distrusting that God's plan isn't the best for us, and we're missing something. God's holding something out for us, or that God isn't enough for us, or God's best isn't best, right? By the same token, there will be days where I go to film in my kitchen, or I go to film, wherever. And once I moved out of my parents' house, that's when I actually started like filming more, because I'm like, oh, this is my space. I don't need to worry about my mom walking in, or I don't need to worry about, how messy the kitchen is. Yeah. Now that's my responsibility, right? And so there'll be days that like go by and I'll be filming and just part of the kitchen is clean. And you'll know like on filming days, if the rest of my apartment's dirty and just the corner of the kitchen is clean, you know where I've been all day. Like I've been filming in that corner, and that'll convict me, because I'm like, I don't need to be pushing my crap all over the apartment on this side. Like, literally I'll be like throwing stuff across the room, like get out of frame. Like, like. Oh,
well, right now, I mean, granted we cleaned up a little bit before you came, but I actually, can you scoot a little bit this way? I was thinking about that. I was like looking at the camera.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. Okay. But yeah, it's like, people might think my house is clean right now, but
I just had a rage and like threw it across the room.
No, actually, and that was kind of transitioning to the next question. Like, how do you resist the temptation to portray something more polished than reality? And because here's the unfortunate truth, right? Like, there is an element of reality of, if you dress nicer in real life, like, people trust you more. People just do. And people are also drawn to things that look nice. And so it's like, where's the balance between being kind of clean and polished, but also, realistic?
Yeah. There'll be days where I feel convicted about what I post, not in a bad way, but just in a way of like, am I portraying my natural self? And so I'll film and there's stuff in the background. I don't care. Like, just because that's my natural life. Like, I'm going to have packages sitting on the counter. I'm going to have, food out from the meal before. Like, that's just natural for me. But at the end of the day, like, if you portray, like we were talking about earlier, if you portray the perfect clean, like, oh my gosh, my apartment is spotless and I don't have a lick of anything anywhere, no dust, no nothing, and I'm polished, I have my makeup on every day, all of that, if you portray that, you then have to upkeep that.
I have to keep up with it.
And I don't know about you, but I don't want to keep up with that every day. Yeah. And, like, I like not wearing makeup some days. Like, this is the first time I wore makeup in, like, a week, and I love that.
Same.
But also, like, whenever I do my talking videos at night, when I first started, I wasn't wearing any makeup. I did my skincare. I had my, like, little cute bubble headband on from, like, Walmart. Why we are obsessed with those, I don't know why, but...
To keep, like, your, like when you're washing your face.
I wear it, like, all day. Way longer than it's just take it off. And I was like, had no makeup on. That's the one that went viral. And I was like, of course I don't have makeup on. And the Lord convicted me of like, what does makeup do for you? Like, it doesn't. Like, yeah, you might get some more views or what, like you said, like the more polished you look, whatever. But there's been videos that I've just been so, like, no trace of makeup, like, literally exhausted from the whole day, and I sit down and I film a video, and people are like, I love your rawness. Like, I love how vulnerable you are. Like, you look so real.
Because they can see themselves in
Yes,
you.
yes, because I don't want you to come to my platform, again, making a safe space. I don't want you to come to my platform and I'm caked on with makeup, I have the best outfit on in my whole entire closet, and then I have the most perfect Bible, ironed out, like, best of the best, top-notch markers and pens and highlighters and everything, and then you're like, wait a minute, but, like, I don't look like that, and I don't whatever. Like, I'd rather sit there with no makeup on, greasy hair, talking about, a topic that's probably not on your radar to talk about, and then all of a sudden you hear it and you're like, wait a minute, like, that really resonated with me. Not only because you're talking about a topic I needed to hear, but also because the background looks like, you went through a hurricane, and because you look real, like, you just rolled up out of bed. Okay, cool, I did. Like, good morning. Like, that's real,
For sure. I know, I even struggle as I'm starting to roll out this podcast and stuff. Like, I look at my hands and I'm like, oh, I have not had time to, prepare myself. But also I'm like, well, it's kind of the stage of life I'm in right now. Like, I just that's something that's simply on the back burner right now is the upkeep of my hands. I make it to the gym. Yeah. That's great. Yep. I'm showering. I'm keeping my body, I'm healthy. I'm eating well, but like, this has not, and I'm like, do I paint them just for this? Like, I just, it's so interesting. And so I'm also trying to figure out that balance too.
Well, the other day I was like, do I need to clean my apartment before I film this? And I paused and I was like, I should be cleaning my apartment regardless. I know that's like, that's good. Silly.
No,
but
that's
like,
good.
That's a good like mental thing of like, it doesn't matter if I'm not filming that day or if I am, I need to have those standards for myself of like, I need to go clean. I need to be productive. I need to get stuff done instead of being like, well, okay, Wednesday and Thursday are film days. So I'll get dressed and I'll clean my apartment for Wednesday and Thursday. And then the rest of the days, like, those just go to the wayside. Like, no, because then I'm tripping over stuff in the apartment all the time. I'm getting mad. Like, and then I throw it across the room and then it's, wherever that landed. And so, like, really it's become like a productive routine. Like, every morning, okay, we're going to have a opening shift and a closing shift, 30 minutes, clean up, tidy, make my room and my, environment feel like I want it, like I'm proud of it. Like I want it to feel like that, rather than just making it up for social media.
No, that it was the perfect transition to my next question. And you'll see where I'm going with this. So like, has sharing your Christian beliefs on such a large platform ever tested your faith or made you question how you live out your beliefs in real life? And I want to add a caveat to not even just your Christian beliefs, but like, has the things that you posted ever convicted you that, oh, I'm not actually doing that in my real life? Like, do you have an example?
It's gonna be really, really, really telling. So years ago, back before I had the wisdom of I don't have to post every time that I read my Bible. Back when I, didn't have that realization yet, there would be times where I'd sit down and I'd open my Bible and I catch myself even now doing it and I'm like, stop. Open up my Bible and I'll turn to a page that's like really highlighted, take a lot of notes, and I'll pull my notes over and I'll kind of like angle it that way, and then I'll pull my coffee mug and put it right here, put my pen right here, and then I'll kind of like angle it a little bit, make sure I'm on the right page, everything's set up. And I kind of lean back and I'm like, this would be a great photo. How ironic. And I take a photo. And then I sit there and I edit the photo. Then I go over to Instagram and I post it and I scroll and I scroll and I scroll. And I'm like, oh, time to get to work. Okay. Close.
So you didn't ever ended up reading the Bible?
No, there'd be times like that. And every time I did that, like for the rest of the day, I'd be so mad at myself. So mad. So then I started being like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to take any pictures of my Bible.
No, that's...
And literally a couple nights ago, I was sitting on my patio and I had like all like my books and my Bible and everything. I did my entire devotional, entire quiet time. And at the end, I was like, this is where it comes in. Once you've learned, once you've eaten, right, the bread, once you've actually like gained the wisdom and like you're done with your quiet time, this is when you're meant to share. Not before, and then you get caught up in the posting and you don't even read. You're supposed to be sharing the after effect, right? Like what you gained, what you learned, what you want to portray to others. And I took and even in that moment, I was like, I remember doing this whenever I was younger and like just posting and then not even reading,
Yes.
So that's a big, and I feel like a lot of people do that. And people critique other people who record themselves while they're reading too, because like, is it authentic? Are you really reading the Bible, or are you propping up your phone and like flipping through? That's why I have a hard time filming like my devotionals and quiet. Everybody asks for it and I'm like, I don't really want to, I don't think. Yeah, because it's my intimate time with God.
It's a personal conviction. And really, I mean, especially if you feel convicted about it, you shouldn't. And I don't remember the Bible verse off the top of my head, but it does say something about, when you pray, to go into in private,
quiet place. Yeah.
And I would argue that it's the same thing when
Yeah.
you're reading your Bible.
Yeah.
It's the time that you're supposed to have with you and the Lord, not to show everybody, look how religious I am, look how, and that's not the word we use anyways, really, but look how holy I am.
Yeah.
And that's not what we're called to do. If anything, we're called to just share our faith, but not as a performance. We've sort of touched on this, but taking it into a different direction. So with as many followers as you have, and you're 23 years old, I would imagine that you do of a majority have like a certain kind of audience. It's probably people in a similar life season your age, but it's so many people you're bound to have, people of different stages and ages and all that. How do you balance that weight of, okay, I have all these followers from all different sorts of backgrounds. Do you ever get comments that you feel like are out of your knowledge?
Yeah.
So how do you handle that? Do you tell them, I don't know that answer, but I have a resource for you? What do you do?
So I was on live the other night, actually, and there's probably a handful, like maybe 100, 200 people on, and this one girl kept asking me questions about Catholicism. And my dad was Catholic, growing up. My dad's family is Catholic, and so part of me was like, well, let me tell you what I think I know. But then I was like, I don't really know that to be true, because I'm not educated in that, right? And there's a lot of different faiths that I'm not educated in, and like that's I wouldn't say that's me being ignorant. That's just me not taking the time to learn all of those in extent.
And you're not expected to know everything in the world.
I
don't know about
some deep questions. I'm like,
cars.
I'm not going to know about that. And so there are some questions about like, how does a Christian like yourself feel about Catholicism in this way and in this light? And like, what do you feel about the rules and regulations and all that stuff? And I'm like, girl, I'm lost. Like, I'm not picking up the breadcrumbs that you are, but I can give you a great resource. And so I pointed her to somebody who would know more than me. Anyways, I would recommend, kind of aiming somebody towards somebody that knows more, maybe a little bit more educated, but also not speaking out where you don't know. Like that, I was taught that very quick of like, yes, I'm speaking out about, not cussing. That was one of the videos that went viral years ago, was I said, it's really not cute to cuss, and like made it this whole long video. Well, it went on the right side of TikTok for about like a day or two, and then all of a sudden, went crazy on the other side. I got like raked across the coals so bad to where I was like, I had to turn off the whole comment section. I had to turn off. And I was like, this is really, really bad. Because then it was like, you're judging us. You're judging the people who do cuss as Christians, because you do have that fine line of like,
girl, you're so good at transitioning. Because that's actually what I was about to say. Like, have you ever even, what do you do with the division that you might cause even amongst the Christian community? Have you ever experienced Christians? Because even though, a lot of this stuff, it's yes and amen, but what happens when it's not? What if it's like, I disagree with you. I also love Jesus, but we are on very opposite sides of this issue. Have you ever experienced that, and what did you do?
I experienced it in the sense of, cussing. There's a lot of Christians who condone, cussing. And to be honest, like, I feel like, let no unwholesome talk come from your mouth, right? Like, that's biblical. But also, we're held to our own convictions. Like, we interpret the Bible all differently, right? Same thing with alcohol. I posted about never drinking alcohol, and then I went through, like, a whole year where all of a sudden, like, alcohol was a really big part of my...
Everything's fine. I knocked over a light if you're listening.
I went through a season of, like, I'm testing out alcohol for the first time because I'm 21. And now everything that I've said about alcohol, now I don't really feel like it's the same. And then I'm growing in that in my mind. And then now I'm like, wait, I really didn't need that. So now I'm back to a different feeling, right? It's my own conviction. Yeah. Same thing that happened with boundaries within waiting for sex within marriage, or waiting for marriage for sex.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, that's not going all right.
You're almost there.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're close.
Waiting for marriage for sex. There are Christians who believe that if they are engaged, if they are dating and it's been 2-3 years, they're living together, they're, having sex and everything. And I don't necessarily agree with that. Yeah. But again, we're Christians. We both believe the same thing. We both believe that Jesus is our Lord and Savior. By the end of the day, we have different convictions. And that's where it's really, and same thing with politics too. It's a really, really fine line of like, I try my hardest not to, well, I say that. I try my hardest not to post too much about politics because I will get the people of like, you support who and you do what, whatever. It's a very fine line because at the end of the day, we can both be Christian and we can both support different people. But we're both Christian. But that isn't enough.
And sometimes social media isn't the place to have certain conversations. It's like having the wisdom to know, is this the space for this conversation? And sometimes, depending on if you know the person or not, like you can invite them to a private conversation. There are different ways of navigating that issue.
Well, it's not just the other day this happened. It wasn't even politics. It was I reposted something that's happening in the media, and I posted about it, and I was like, this is so sad that this is happening. I got some like nasty reactions, even from people that I call my friends, who like they were hot and heavy about it, and I was like, what on earth is going on? Like it sometimes when we take things to social media that necessarily shouldn't be addressed on social media, sometimes they can cause that type of like turmoil, tenseness, because all of a sudden like you're in what you posted today, literally what you posted, was it today or maybe I just saw it today?
I think I posted it yesterday.
Okay, that literally convicted me because what I'm liking, what I'm commenting on, I'm endorsing, I'm supporting. So like if I go and comment on something and especially the Reels feature, like way to out us. So now I'm like real careful with my pointer finger about what I'm liking because now anybody can see that.
For context, I posted something on the Upside Down Influencer account about how Reels now has this feature where even though you can kind of see what people like before, it's even more public now. They like almost recommend to you the Reels that your friends have liked.
It's like up here, and you can like go, you click there, and you scroll through, and you see which friend liked what video.
Yeah, and so it's revealing what kind of content that you are watching.
It's an accountability perk, that's for sure. Because I was like, after I read that, I was like, oh, dang. I didn't even think about it like that. Yeah. But then now it's like, even today, I was going to send my friend something, and I was like, I am not going to do that. Because I find it funny, she finds it funny, but it might not be funny to others. And it is holding me accountable, right? It's like, wait a minute, like I can't like that because now if I do, then I'm going to have the comments and the DMs are like, wait, you do? And then that makes me be like, okay, wait, I need to take accountability for myself. Why am I liking this? Or even if it's like, being a girl, there's thirst traps out there, right? On TikTok, I could scroll for hours of like, guys making, videos and like working out gym videos. Like that's great. That's really great content. But am I going to sit there and consume it and become like enthralled by it and lust after it? No. But it's so easy to get caught up in the trap and to like and keep going and now that I know, like, hey, like Reels, like okay, well I shouldn't be on it then. I shouldn't be liking it then.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, I know we've been going for a while, so I'm going to start trying to wrap it up a little bit here. So you do have a large platform, and with that comes the potential for recognition. How do you stay humble? Because I could imagine it's easy to feel like, look at how great I am. Look what I did. I earned this. Yeah. And in a way, I mean, you're TikTok famous. How do you handle that as a believer?
It's funny. I actually got recognized the other day at church. I was in the foyer with a friend, and this girl came up. She's like, Cassidy. And I was like,
do I know you?
Hey. I'm like waiting for it to like connect. And I'm looking at my friend. I'm looking at my other friend. I'm waiting for them to make a connection. Nobody's making a connection. I'm like, hey. And she's like pretty close to me, super sweet girl. And I'm like, this feels like I should know who you are. Like we're having an intimate conversation. And she's like, I follow you from TikTok and I didn't even know you went to church here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's such a small world, right? Like you watch my videos, all of a sudden, we bump into each other at church and it's just crazy. And there have been other times I'm at Hope's Closet and I'm shopping and the cashier's like, so how's the move? And when I tell you, like, I love it, right? But at the same time, I'm like,
it also like takes you back, like, how did you know about my life?
And then I'm like, oh my God, like I feel like,
how do you know me?
Like like the You Show, where it's like I feel like I'm like every eye is on me, like Big Brother or something. And I'm like, wait a minute, and I'm like calculating. I'm like, A, do I know you? B, did I say something about that on social media? That's also something where I'm like, every single thing I say, people listen, like, and not in a not humble way, but like in a way of I need to keep myself accountable.
It's a reminder.
Yeah, a reminder of like what comes out of my mouth. People hear and they see and they keep me accountable of it. And I was like, oh, the movie was really good. Yeah, I was like, I'm really excited. She's like, oh my gosh, it looks beautiful. And I'm like, this is crazy that like, you know what my apartment looks like because I
And
posted it.
it's a little scary.
Oh yeah.
The reminder of
Mm-hmm.
what am I putting out there
Yeah.
that the wrong
Mm-hmm.
people can see.
Mm-hmm. I have to, when I'm unboxing stuff, this is a silly example, but I have to cover up the label because people can zoom in and screenshot. Or when I'm making apartment videos, I have to like cover where I live, or I
almost fell. Sorry.
I have to cover where I live or cover the apartment number because I mean, God forbid somebody looks at it. I mean, it's not really hard, you know. So like that part is kind of scary.
Yeah.
I think at the root of it, it is remembering why it started and how it started and where. So like it started because I truly started sharing my testimony, sharing my faith. And a really sobering thought is as quickly as God made it happen, go viral overnight, he can just as quickly take it away.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I saw that over the years of not pursuing him. Over the past 2 to 3 years, I lost 100,000 followers on TikTok and 4,000 on Instagram.
Wow.
Like, I mean, gradually decreasing every day. And I got so insecure about it. I was like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I feel like whatever. And it was because I was living this, like, double life away from God. Like, I was going to ministry school. I was getting my degree in what I thought I wanted to do. But at the same time, like, I was, you know, relying on other things of the world to satisfy. And I didn't truly put my faith and all of my hope and reliance on him. I was putting it in relationships. I was putting it in things that I thought would satisfy me of the world, and it didn't. And I mean, that just goes to prove, like, if you can't be trusted with a platform, I'm so sorry. I'm so
Was that your stomach?
That's me. I'm so sorry. Trying to sit still.
That happened to me last week for my recording.
Try to sit still.
Her stomach's rumbling.
So sorry.
Audibly.
That's what happens when you don't eat lunch.
That's hilarious.
If God can't trust you with a platform, like, he's not going to give it to you, you know? Like, that is some of the hardest stuff to keep up with. We were just joking. I was like, yeah, I have a full-time job. Like, she's like, oh, yeah, like, social media is a full-time job. It's like, yeah, and I already have one. Like, to have both, to do it as a side hustle, it's a lot. You know, it's a commitment for sure.
Yeah, and I like what you said, just remembering, like, that God is the one who built the platform. I've been reading through the Old Testament, and it's just over and over, God is reminding the people, like, I remember the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt.
Yeah.
Because we are just so prone to wander. And there's a reason that God is telling Moses to tell the people, remember the Lord your God. Because he's the one that did everything. And when you get to the promised land and when you're eating this good food and you're living this great life, don't forget who got you there.
Yep. But we like to say it's ours. Like, oh, yeah, welcome back to my channel or welcome back to my platform, because we think that we built it. We posted, we edited, we filmed, we bought the equipment to do it. So it's on us, right? Because we feel the editing process. We feel the pruning process because we did it. It's hard work. But at the same time, like, we wouldn't be here doing that said hard work without God.
Right.
But also, even if we buy all the equipment on earth, it can still flop. It can still not make it.
You're right. Yeah. You know? If God's not in it, it's...
No. And I don't want to post stuff. Like, that is the last, like, I will never post stuff where I'm like, I don't feel like God's in that. Or, you know what, I haven't spent time with him today. It's inauthentic. Like, I never want to be that person, because then I'm just keeping up the platform for the platform's sake and not for actually speaking to people. And it is a ministry. Like, whatever way that you slice it, you have been gifted. And it doesn't matter if you have a following of one or however many. It's still a ministry. Yeah. Like, I could sit here and say, like, oh, when you reach 250, that's when it's qualified as a ministry. No, when you have just one follower, that means you have a following. Exactly. That means you have somebody that's looking up to you or looking to your surroundings or following what you're doing. It's a follower, so that means you're being followed. Doesn't mean if you have 1 or 300,000, whatever. Exactly. It's still a platform that people are going to be looking up to you on, and that's something you have to be held accountable of. Like, how are you treating that platform? Are you treating it like it's been a gift from God and you're actually using it with discernment and you're using it for a ministry aspect, or are you using it to your own glory?
So good. So good. Well, looking ahead, how do you hope that your platform will evolve? And maybe you haven't even thought that far yet. You know, like, if you kind of look down the pipeline of 5 years from now, is there something that you hope that you're doing?
I think that I'm hoping to be out from behind the screen. I'm hoping to be doing stuff in person. I'd love to...
Like public speaking?
Yeah. I'd love to do that. It's way out of my comfort zone, and I did it in college some, and I loved it, but I think that would grow me. to where I'm so comfortable. Like I can plug my phone right now and make, a video and not feel any shame about it. Like I could go in public. I'm still working the public part, but go in the public and like in video. Well, I don't know. I mean, we're working on that, but like
that makes me nervous.
Yeah, it makes me nervous.
In the grocery store.
Yeah, I'm like keeping it far down. Or like my mom's like, should I keep it up here? I'm like, no, put it down. So like I'm still working on that part, but I know that I'm very comfortable behind the screen, but I want to be growed in front, right? Because we can't take our devices to heaven. I know that it is a ministry and like the platform and social media is, but at the same time, I want to be able to minister to people in person. And I would love those opportunities to do so. I think that, but obviously if it's in God's will for that to happen, I would love to follow that through.
I can absolutely see it. You're just such a gifted speaker. Something that I love about you, that this is an area that the Lord is, I want to be good at this, but I am not yet, but you can just talk. Like, you can just talk and not lose your train of thought. And so often when I'm making a video and if I'm trying to talk about something about God, I'll say like a few sentences and I'm like, I stop it. I'm like,
where was I?
Okay, I have to think about that. But you're so good at just going from one thing to another, which I think is going to translate really well to being a public speaker.
I think my mom would agree with that because I've always been a yapper. Like I've always been a talker my entire life. Being an only child, you have to talk to yourself. Like I grew up talking to myself. So like on my iPod Nano back in, what was that, like 2010, I was like recording myself doing house tours in my house when we moved and like doing all these weird things. And like I knew from a very early age that I wanted to be on social media and I wanted to be a YouTuber. I wanted to be behind the camera. But now it's like once you've been behind the camera forever, you're like, okay, what's next? Like you want that next step. You want to, go out and speak to people and hands-on, more a little bit hands-on.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking for a really long time and I could keep going. I really could. I just love this conversation. There's so much more we can talk about. I want to talk about more things. Yeah. But where can people find you?
The Cassidy, like I joked about earlier. The Cassidy on Instagram, Not For Nothing with Cassidy on all podcast.
Yeah, she has her own podcast. Real quick, what is your podcast about?
So I was told at a very early age that, I love your voice. I want to hear you talk, whatever, like you were talking about. I've been told that my entire life. And so I knew somewhere along the line a podcast would come up. And so I want to be the voice to the voiceless. I want to be a safe place for people. And so I want to show people that what they go through is not for nothing. And that's just my heart in it, is like you might go through some really deep valleys. You might go through some really tall mountaintops. But at the end of the day, all of that is used for God's glory and you have a purpose. Even though there might be pain, even though there might be heartache, it's still for God's glory and it's still for a purpose.
That's amazing. So, Is there anything else you'd like to add?
If you find me on Instagram, you'll find everything else from there. So I have it all linked. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this has been so much fun.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I loved it.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. I invite you to connect with us on our social media channels at Upside Down Influencer on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. Upside Down Influencer is produced by 514 Productions, music by Jason Cooper, and website by Metal Marketing.